Okay. What I'm going to be doing today is kind of to demonstrate for you the notion that is kind of sweeping through the nation now about the use of target language. At the university level, it's still something that all of us struggle, we still try to struggle with because many of us were trained in the grammar translation method. And we learned our languages through that method. So it's kind of like, it looks like impossible to be able to do it. But the trend in the nation now is the use of the target language. So I'm going to start actually with the Artful position. I happen to be on the board of director of Artful the year that this position was, developed. And the good news, what I really like about it is, it's not just the Artful staff that came up with this. It's the language professionals. People from the universities, basically people from K through 16. Artful staff were just on the side. The people who did this, it was at the delegate assembly. And this delegate assembly represents all language professionals, professional organizations in the nation. It's an amazing experience to see. They all sat together and say, okay, what do we do about the issue of target language? Because they are finding out that their students are not learning, when we do translation for them, and many of us have also experienced that. So they came up with this position, and it actually supports a lot of research that many people have done in their classroom. It says that effective language instruction must provide significant levels of meaningful communication and interactive feedback in the target language in order for students to develop language and cultural proficiency. And then we talked about, what should be done. The pivotal role of target language interaction in language learning is also emphasized in the standards. I brought this for you to see. This is the standards they are talking about. All of you basically should have a copy of this because it's really what the language professionals are talking about now. If you want to apply for grants and you don't talk about standards, it would be, if it has to do with language, it kind of really, it gets really close to people saying, wow, how can they not know about standards? Many textbooks are now being changed. If you look at Spanish textbooks now, French textbooks, and many less commonly taught language textbooks are now changing their textbooks to standards-based. It still incorporates a communicative approach, of course, but lots of the textbooks now are becoming standard-based. And I'm going to show you the role that standards, or maybe I will even ask you the role that standards plays in using target language in the classroom. And so Artful, the profession really recommends that language educators and their students use the target language at minimum 90%. Well, you can go to 100% if you want, but minimally 90%, which means the profession still recognizes that there may be a time where you need to whisper something to your students that gives you the 10% is there. So it's not saying you can never use, language, but that's also, if you speak the language, that the students have. What happens if I go to teach Yoruba in Korea? They teach Yoruba in Japan. I don't speak Japanese, so I have to stick to you. I have to find a way to teach them Yoruba without you switching to their language. So in a way, what they are saying is not like, an impossible task. But if you have the language of the students, there is the 10% rule. But many people are actually pushing beyond 90%. So, and they believe that, even beyond the classroom, if possible, you could do that, especially those who do immersion, like, at places like Middlebury, and other places like that, or Concordia. Now they talk about the strategies for maintaining. And when I do the demo, I want you to please be thinking about the strategies that I'm going to be using to stay in the target language, because that's really the key. How do you know? So we use a variety of strategies to make language comprehensible. The biggest problem is people will say, well, they don't understand what I'm saying. How can they really understand? They've never heard check before, or they've never learned Wolof before. Why? And they are advocating this first day of class. I mean, it's only one person who speaks Yoruba here, so she's going to say it out when I'm doing it. Chances are many of you have never learned Yoruba, and this will be like first day of class for you. And then you're going to say, so they are advocating this, even at the novice level. Teacher elicits talk that gradually evolves into increased fluency, accuracy, and complexity. Basically, they are saying, you don't have to teach everything in one lesson. Just start, slowly. Building blocks, little by little, and you are adding as you are going on. It's like building a house. You don't put all the blocks in at the same time. You start with, the foundation stone, and then you start adding. And that's the same with language learning, irrespective of the language you're teaching. So, teacher monitors students and makes adjustments as necessary. That is feedback. There will be, constant feedback that you are also, bringing back into instruction. That's why people in the field also say that for you to be a good teacher, you have to be a good assessor. Because as you are teaching, you are doing formative assessment, and you are, bringing, kind of recycling and using assessment that you are finding, you're using it and putting it back into your teaching. So really, teaching as an assessment, they go hand in hand. That's why the OPI, if you have never done OPI workshop before, you need to do it. Because even if you don't become a certified trainer, it does help you in your teaching. Knowing how to give the correct feedback at the right time and how to loop it back into your teaching. So, and the teacher avoids the use of translation by using verbal and non-verbal strategies. Somebody, this is a quote from Middle College where they really use, immersion strategy method. Life doesn't come with subtitles. I don't usually use subtitle films in my class. I've used documentary films even for elementary Yoruba students, and they're able to get it. Teacher avoids eliciting translation from students also. Teacher models, there could be a time when you really, really want to be sure, if you feel like they are maybe about to be confused and you want to check if they get it. Somebody can maybe tell you like in the language, but you are not the one speaking the language to them, because you want them to only be hearing the language from you. Teacher models authentic language, a step beyond student proficiency. Many of us know about Krashen's, notion of input plus one. That is, you speak at the level you understand, then you just add a little bit at a time. And they understand maybe like 90%, but then you're trying to help them to figure out, the new material that you are adding. But there has to be comprehension, and there has to be understanding. So you can't be talking above their level. You can't be talking in a way that they will not understand, then there's no communication. So, okay. The teacher uses authentic materials. What are the materials in the culture that they need to know? Use that. Don't use doctored or, we use textbooks, of course, but in addition to the textbooks which are what we call pedagogical materials that are kind of a little bit, manipulated for the level of the students, but we should also use authentic materials in addition. So supports transition from performance to proficiency. Today, what I'm going to be doing with you by the end is I will do a performance assessment. It won't be proficiency yet, because proficiency is different from testing is different from performance testing. performance, right? Who will tell me the difference? What is the difference between performance and proficiency? You all know it, I'm sure. Those of you teaching languages. What is the difference between performance assessment and proficiency assessment? Yes.
Performance is limited to a specific task or set of tasks, and proficiency is more generally your abilities in the language.
So you don't give your students a proficiency test after a lesson. You don't. For a lesson, you give a performance assessment because you are testing what you have just taught them. Proficiency assessment can be like maybe at the end of the unit, like maybe at the end of this semester, when you've taught them different things, because you want them to be able to now put together all the different parts of what they have learned. You want to see how they can now bring it back to their own real life situation. For example, if I've been teaching my students, how to greet, how to introduce, how to maybe ask questions, how to talk about their family, how to talk about their friends, how to talk about their hobbies. At the end of the semester, I could give, I will be testing them. For example, at the end of what I will do today, I'm going to teach you how to greet in my language. So I'm going to give you a performance test for asking you to greet. But at the end of the semester, if I've taught you all those basic things, I could just say, tell me about yourself. That's open-ended, right? It's not just about what I just taught now. So now you can shine. You can put together all the things now that you remember. That's proficiency as opposed to performance. And we need to know the difference, yes.
Oh, sorry. So, but then, I'm sorry to interrupt, but then performance test is a component of the proficiency test.
Of course, that's what leads you gradually. It's performance assessment that will continue to be building the students, helping the students to be able to do proficiency assessment. If you don't do performance assessment, and then you end of the semester, you want them to do proficiency, they will not be able to do it because you've not been giving them the feedback. They've not been trying to even show what they learn at every stage. There should be assessment almost at every lesson, but it should be performance. Please feel free to stop me or ask questions as we go on. So that's why I say supports transition from the word transition is very critical, from performance to proficiency. Some instructors will say, oh, I'm giving my students a proficiency test, at the end of the lesson. You can't do that because they only know a little bit at that time. Okay. So, what I'm going to do now, I need volunteers, people who've never, learned Yoruba before. And I'm going to demo for you when I do that, then I will want you to just watch, to kind of see how I'm trying to get all those strategies for staying in the target language and trying to, to do that. When I finish the demo, then we will discuss. And we will talk about the theoretical underpinnings. What are the issues? What are the theoretical issues that I have in the back of my mind that I'm trying to apply? How am I making what I'm saying comprehensible? What are the comprehensible input strategies that I'm using? So hopefully you'll be paying attention to that. I have a lesson plan that I actually prepared, but I will give it to you at the end for you to see how everything I'm going to be doing is based on that lesson plan. Lesson planning, when we talk about lesson planning, those of us in the humanities and at the college level, we always think, oh, that's what they do in the School of Education. It's just for K through 12. It's for any learning. If you don't plan what you're going to teach, you're going to plan to fail. Somebody actually wrote an article, not planning is planning to fail. We have to know what we're going to do. Even if you're a native speaker of the language, don't just go inside the classroom. I've seen some of my teaching assistants who, because they are native speakers, they will just go in and start, talking, no preparation. You can tell what is going on because they're jumping from one topic to the other, putting all these unrelated vocabulary together. There's no systematic plan. But if you plan, it will really show. So I will show you the lesson, but I don't want you to see it now until, at the end of the lesson. Also, I want you to see, let me quickly show you what I'm going to be doing. I'm basing it on standards. Standards tells us what students should know and be able to do by the time they finish learning your language. And it grades them if they are at the beginning level. Watch it if you have a student for a semester, there's something they should be able to take out of your class, even if they never have your class again. So standards actually did a beautiful job. Basically, it's just saying these are what elementary students should know and be able to do by the time they finish the elementary class. Intermediate also has intermediate. If you have intermediate, you can divide it into semesters if you want. These are what intermediate learners of the language. For somebody, when we talk about those levels, it's not just seat time. It's not just how many hours you spend in class. It's really what are you teaching them. That's what standards. So we all have, this is generic. You can take this and use it for your own language. The Yoruba instructors just came together and worked on their own Yoruba specific one. So we have a Yoruba specific one now, that people have done, and some other organizations have come up with their own, specific standards. So what I did was I took just one of the things that standard says novice level students should know and be able to do, because you will be all novice students now. So it's at the novice level you will be. So I think of what did standards say novice level students should be able to do. Novice level should be able to greet. They should be able to, even if they can't do it in complete sentences, even if it is memorized phrases, memorized, sentences, it's okay. It's novice. They are not intermediate. They are not advanced. So I'm taking what, out of all what was listed for what novice level students should be able to do. Then, like beginning level. Then I took something like this. This is from Concordia, College in Minnesota. It's an amazing language study place. If you haven't really, heard about them, check what they're doing. It's an amazing. They have lots of languages. They call it actually villages. You go there, you will think you are in Germany, in the German section. You will think you are in France, in the French section. Or I think they're now having Arabic also, because I went there 2 summers ago. It's really amazing. So basically, if you look at the first one, okay, before I go to this, also standard talks about the 5 C's. What are the 5 C's? Communication. Culture.
Presentation.
Community. Connection. And comparison. Okay, and comparison. Those are the 5. Those are 5 goals. Actually, those are 5 goals of learning languages. Then each goal has standards. Communication has how many standards? These are all what we need to know. Maybe we will need to do another workshop on standards. Communication has 3. Communication is the only one that has 3. There are 11 standards altogether, but communication has 3. The culture 2, comparison 2, connection 2, and community 2. So what are the standards for communication? Because it's so critical. Before you teach, you have to ask yourself, what should my students be able to do and know before they leave this lesson? So, and standards gives you that. But then you have to, so if it is communication that I want to you can actually do communication. All those 5 C's kind of work together, but at least at the novice level, we try to say we're going to concentrate on communication, but culture is also, it's really basically there. But within communication, interpersonal. So you can decide and say interpersonal, presentational, and interpretive. So you have to decide. That's why these two really play a major role in what you do in the classroom. You don't only decide on what level, okay, I'm going to be doing novice level, then what communicative standard do I want to really pin down. So today I'm going to be concentrating on interpersonal communication. But you can't do interpersonal communication without interpretive. We all listen, right? You have to listen to be able to respond. So interpretive is actually a very key communication standards that we all have to know how to teach. Many times we don't teach it. This is what we used to call listening and reading. Listening, you know, when you are listening to the radio or you're listening to somebody talking, you are interpreting what they are saying. Like I'm talking to you now. Many of you are nodding because you're understanding what I'm saying. Interpretive communication, many of us don't teach it. Actually, I can say I was guilty of it for many years because we just assume that they can learn it. The same thing with reading. Many times we just come to class and just give our students, you know, okay, let's read. And then we give them the dictionary or they have the dictionary, we give them words that are difficult. But we have to teach it. We have to teach students, how do you listen? And then how do I know that you are listening and you understand what I'm saying? So today I'm going to be, you know, putting both interpretive communication and interpersonal. Okay, that's what I'm going to concentrate on. And I got those ideas from standards. And then, if you look at here, this is what students can say at the end of your lesson, self-assessment. The first one says, interpersonal, low level, that is novice. It says, I can exchange greetings. Your students should be able to say that when they are self-assessing themselves. You know, and this goes along with artful proficiency guidelines. Because if you look, actually they came up with these with artful proficiency guidelines. Artful proficiency guidelines shows what should students be able to do at the novice level. What should they be able to do at the novice low, novice mid, novice high, or intermediate low, intermediate mid, intermediate high, or advanced low and advanced high, or superior if you get to, you know, if you guys have courses that go to 4th, 5th year. So they stay there. So then your students now should be able to self-assess. Say, oh yes, I can greet in Wolof, I can greet in Czech, I can greet in modern Greek. And then it's okay, I want you to do it. You know, students will not say, I can do this, if they know they cannot do it. Actually, they assess themselves more strictly than we do. So everything I'm going to be doing, you know, I'm basing it on this. So the level is novice. That's the proficiency level that I'm targeting. Novice low is what I'm targeting. And for standards, that's proficiency. Proficiency level is novice. For standards, it's interpretive plus interpersonal. Okay? I can also do presentational, which will be writing and presenting orally. But that could be another lesson. You don't have to teach all of them at the same time. Or you could have a lesson that can integrate all those communication standards. It's possible to do that. But today I'll just concentrate on that, on those used to. Okay. Please, never, I mean, we can all do whatever we want, but it's always good for you to let your students know where you are taking them to. Let them know what you want them to achieve. Give them the performance objective. That's what we call the performance objective. You remember my lesson, even my overall workshop today, I came and gave you the performance objective. This is the performance objective for the overall workshop. But for each lesson, there should be a performance objective. And it could be in English. If maybe when you are dealing with advanced level, at the novice level, it's always good to make it English. But maybe advanced level, you could do it in the language, but at least for novice. So by the end of this lesson, you will be able to greet a colleague or a friend. So I've already, what did the performance, what am I doing with the performance objective now?
No.
Huh?
Personal.
Narrowing, exactly. I'm now narrowing the expectations. That they are not going to be thinking, oh, maybe we're going to go and buy and sell. I've already narrowed. So now they're thinking about how do you say, hello, and all those normally, because everybody can greet in their language. They already know, the greeting. It's now that I want them to be able to do it in my language. All the functions, the linguistic functions that we are teaching in our language classes, they're already doing it in their own language, but different ways and different cultural, ways of doing it. But those functions, in most cases, are general, though there could be some functions that people don't perform. For example, in my culture, people don't go around and introducing themselves unless you are in a class and your teacher asks you to introduce yourself to the rest of the class, or you are at a committee meeting and everybody at the committee needs to. But other than that, you don't just go around and say, oh, my name is Antonia, what is your name? We don't do that. But you still need to teach it, but you have to tell them the context where it will happen in your language. So that's why you have to get in the culture. Don't just greet, don't just teach the greetings without giving them the context. So this is the context we're going to. It's greeting colleagues. To greet adults in my culture is different. So that will probably be the next lesson. To greet at a business context, in an office, in an official context, it's different. There was a time a secretary of a state in my country came here in the 70s when Nigeria economy was really booming. They will come to the US or go to London to go and interview Nigerian students that are graduating so that they can offer them jobs as they come. So they will actually come here. So one of these state personnel was telling me that one time they came to the United States to interview these graduating Nigerians, and one of them came in the interview and said, hi, he failed right there. Because you don't do that, to an older person in the culture. Even though it was still kind of like in an English section, but they are still thinking, you are an African, you should know better. That you don't do that in an official, environment. So this is also something that we also need to bear in mind when we are teaching our classroom. One business lady in Kelly Institute came to me one time and said, Antonia, when I went to Japan, I wish my Japanese teachers had taught me how to greet in an official manner. I know how to greet my friends. I know how to greet, people that are, running around. But in an office situation in Japan, I was not. So now they're asking me to prepare a curriculum for teaching foreign languages with business concepts. Because it's so critical. We may think our students will never need it, but it's happening because students are now traveling a lot. So we need to think of the context. So this context is among friends. Okay? Oh yeah. You are my guinea pigs today, right? You guys, okay. Lónìí, a máa kọ́ nípa ìkíni. Ìkíni ní ilẹ̀ Yorùbá. Ìkíni láàrin ẹgbẹ́. Ìkíni nìyí. Ìkíni. A máa kọ́ nípa ìkíni láàrin ẹgbẹ́ ní ilẹ̀ Yorùbá. Ìkíni. ìkíni láàrin ẹgbẹ́ ẹgbẹ́ bóyá ìwọ àti ìwọ ẹgbẹ́ ìkíni láàrin ẹgbẹ́. Tolú nìyí bíi Antonia, Tolú. Adé orúkọ Antonia, Craig, Martin orúkọ nìyí. Ìkíni láàrin Tolú àti Adé. Ìkíni láàrin Tolú àti Adé. Ìkíni láàrin Tolú àti Adé. Ó yá. Báwo ni Adé? Dáadáa ni Tolú. Ilé ńkọ́? Rẹ̀mí. Ilé ńkọ́? Ó wà. Iṣẹ́ ńkọ́? Ó wà. Bàbá ńkọ́? Wọ́n wà. Ilé ńkọ́? Ó wà. Iṣẹ́ ńkọ́? Ó wà. Bàbá ńkọ́? Wọ́n wà. Màmá ńkọ́? Wọ́n wà. Ó dàbọ̀. Mo máa tún ṣe, ó yá. Báwo ni Adé? Dáadáa ni. Ilé ńkọ́? Ó wà. Iṣẹ́ ńkọ́? Ó wà. Bàbá ńkọ́? Wọ́n wà. Màmá ńkọ́? Wọ́n wà. Ó dàbọ̀. Ó yá, ẹ jẹ́ ká ṣe. Báwo ni? Ẹ sọ pé báwo ni? Ẹ sọ pé báwo ni? Ẹ sọ pé báwo ni? Dáadáa ni. Báwo ni? Dáadáa ni. Sọ pé dáadáa ni. Ó ṣe. Báwo ni? Dáadáa ni. Ó yá. Ìwọ sọ pé báwo ni? Òun máa sọ pé dáadáa ni. Ẹ̀yin méjì. Báwo ni? Ẹ̀yin méjì. Ó yá sọ pé báwo ni? Aha, ó ṣe. Ó yá, ẹ̀yin méjì. Ẹ ṣe. Ó yá, ẹ sọ pé ilé ńkọ́? Ó wà. Èmi máa sọ pé ilé ńkọ́, ẹ̀yin máa sọ pé ó wà. Ilé ńkọ́? Iṣẹ́ ńkọ́? Ó wà. Iṣẹ́ ńkọ́? Ẹ̀yin sọ pé ilé ńkọ́? Ó wà. Ẹ ṣe. Ó wà. Ó yá sọ pé báwo ni? Dáadáa ni. Ilé ńkọ́? Ó wà. iṣẹ́ ńkọ́ ó wà ó yá méjì méjì.
Báwo ni? Ilé ńkọ́?
Ó wà.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yes, do it again.
Báwo ni? Dáadáa ni.
Dadan.
Ilé ńkọ́?
Iṣẹ́ ńkọ́. Ilé aha. Ó yá mo fẹ́ gbọ́ báwo ni. Ó yá mo fẹ́ gbọ́ ó wà. Iṣẹ́ ńkọ́. Iṣẹ́ ńkọ́. Iṣẹ́ ńkọ́. Ó yá mo fẹ́ gbọ́. Ó yá iṣẹ́ ńkọ́. Ó wà. Ilé ńkọ́. Ó wà. Ẹ ṣé. Ó yá ẹ sọ pé bàbá ńkọ́. Bàbá ńkọ́. Wọ́n wà. Màmá ńkọ́. Wọ́n wà. Ó yá èmi máa sọ pé èmi máa kí yín ẹ̀yin máa dáhùn. Ó yá báwo ni?
Dáadáa ni.
Báwo ni? Báwo ni? Ilé ńkọ́. Ilé ńkọ́. Iṣẹ́ ńkọ́. Bàbá ńkọ́. Wọ́n wà. Màmá ńkọ́. Wọ́n wà. Ó dàbọ̀. Ó dàbọ̀. Ó yá aha. So ẹ̀yin méjì ẹ máa ṣe eléyìí. Báwo ni? Kí ni orúkọ mi? Orúkọ mi ni Yétúndé. Kí ni orúkọ mi ni Antonia? Kí ni orúkọ ẹ? Orúkọ mi ni Antonia Schleicher. Antonia Schleicher. Orúkọ rẹ ni. Báwo ni Israel? Ilé ńkọ́. Iṣẹ́ ńkọ́. Bàbá ńkọ́. Màmá ńkọ́. Ó dàbọ̀. Ó yá ẹ̀yin ẹ̀ṣẹ̀.
Mama. Is this like in Spanish?
Because of the K.
Do it again.
Okay.
Dadan. Ile. Ise.
Ẹ wo iṣẹ́ ni iṣẹ́ ńkọ́ ó wà. Ilé nìyí. Ilé ni bàbá, màmá àti ọmọ. Ilé ni màmá, bàbá, ọmọ. Ilé ńkọ́ ó wà. Ilé ńkọ́ ó wà. Ó wà. Ó wà. Ilé ńkọ́ ó wà. Bàbá ńkọ́ wọ́n wà. Màmá ńkọ́ wọ́n wà. Ó ṣe wọ́n wà. Ilé ni bàbá, màmá àti ọmọ. Ilé ni bàbá, màmá, ọmọ, ilé. Ó yá ẹ máa tún ṣe é sìn. Ó yá kẹ́ tún ṣe. Oya, mo fẹ́ kẹ́ ṣe ń sìn. Ẹ̀yin sọ pé báwo ni, ẹ sọ pé báwo ni fún wọn. Báwo ni?
Báwo ni?
Ẹ̀yin sọ pé dáadáa ni.
Báwo ni?
Dáadáa ni.
Ilé.
Ilé ńkọ́?
Ó wà.
Iṣẹ́ ńkọ́?
Ó wà.
Bàbá ńkọ́?
Iṣẹ́.
Bàbá ńkọ́?
Bàbá. Wọ́n wà.
Màmá ńkọ́?
Wọ́n wà.
Ó dàbọ̀. Oya, ẹ̀yin ẹ bẹ̀rẹ̀ báwo ni?
Báwo ni?
Bàbá ni.
Iṣẹ́ òkè. Màmá ń.
Ilé.
Ilé.
Ilé ńkọ́? Ó wà. Aha. Màmá.
Màmá ńkọ́? Ó dàbọ̀.
Papa.
Papa.
Aha. Oya. Bàbá.
Papa ńkọ́?
Ẹ ṣé.
Ó dàbọ̀.
Ẹ ṣé. Oya, nísìnyí nǹkan tí mo fẹ́ kẹ́ ṣe nìyí. Ẹ̀rí ilé, iṣẹ́, ó wà. Wọ́n wà. Aha. Ṣé ẹ̀yin méjì ẹ máa jìjọ ṣe ń sìn. Ẹ̀yin méjì.
What about?
Ó dàbọ̀. Mo fẹ́ kí ó yá ẹ̀yin méjèèjì ẹ wá ẹ má bọ̀ ẹ dìde ẹ dìde ó yá mo fẹ́ kí ẹ ṣe léyìí ẹ lè lo orúkọ lè sọ pé báwo ni ìyàbẹ̀rẹ̀ ó yá ẹ kí ara yín.
Dadani?
Isheka,
Owa.
Ileka,
Owa.
Papanka,
Mowa.
Mamanka,
Mowa.
Oda.
Oda.
Wow! Ó dá ẹ ṣe ó yá ẹ̀yin méjèèjì ẹ wá bọ̀.
Dadani, Ilenka, Owa, Isenka, Owa, Baba Inka, Mowa, Mama Inka, Mowa, Oda.
Greg àti ọ̀rẹ́ àti Frank.
You got the auntie?
Odabo.
You want the auntie?
Dadani.
Ilé ńkọ́?
Mowa.
Iṣẹ́ ńkọ́?
Mowa.
Bàbá ńkọ́?
Mowa.
Màmá ńkọ́?
Mowa.
Ó dàbọ̀.
Ẹ ṣe ó yá ṣáájú àti ọ̀rẹ́.
Báwo ni?
Dadani,
Ilé ńkọ́?
Mowa, Owa,
Iṣẹ́ ńkọ́?
Owa,
Bàbá ńkọ́?
Mowa,
Màmá ńkọ́?
Mowa,
Ó dàbọ̀.
Oda.
Ẹ ṣe ó yá ọgbọ̀n ẹ̀yin méjèèjì ó ti ẹ̀yin méjì yìí.
Kupaone.
Dadani,
Iṣẹ́ ńkọ́?
Owa,
Ilé ńkọ́?
Owa,
Bàbá ńkọ́?
Mowa,
Màmá ńkọ́?
Mowa,
Dàbọ̀.
Oda.
Ẹ ṣe. Oh yeah, okay,
Yes, Kevin.
Dadani.
Elenco.
Wa. Wa. Owa.
Ishenko.
Owa.
Mamanko.
Wanwa.
Babanko.
Wanwa.
Odan.
All of you basically have gone through, right? And basically you all got the basics of what I needed you to do. First lesson. This is what I teach my first day of lesson. As soon as I do tell them the lay of the land, the ground rules, syllables, everything, I immediately switch to this, and it's all in Yoruba. What are the functions that Maya speakers perform with their language? That's your duty, to help them to be able to do that. So that if they end up in Mexico or wherever, or they meet Maya speakers, they can communicate. And you don't have to have a textbook. Actually, sometimes a textbook can be a hindrance, right? How many of you know that? A textbook can be a hindrance.
That's fine.
Actually, you don't need textbook as such. If you're a good teacher, a good teacher can even take a bad textbook and just take points. When I was using my textbook, I never finish it. I just use it as a guide. I always look for, okay, which function am I going to teach this week? We're going to do greetings. Okay, maybe next week we're going to do introducing oneself, or talking about your family, talking about your friends, talking about somebody that you like best. So that's talking about somebody. So now I'm going to get myself together. What are the vocabulary that they need to perform that function? What is the grammatic? What is the grammar they need to perform that function? So now I'm putting the grammar and the vocabulary in context. And then I add the culture. What is the cultural information they need to perform the function? So you're going with the function. You can do every language person and every language teacher with or without a textbook, if you know the language. Textbook is really, really, truly a guide. It's okay. I mean, I know many American students, if they don't have it, it's like, they really, really want that textbook. But as a teacher, for you, it's not something you bring into class and start opening, okay, let's open to page 10. No. You prepare. That's why this is good. This is really my own textbook for teaching, because it guides me, okay, what vocabulary do I need to teach? With greetings, I didn't start with vocabulary. If I were to do a lesson, my next lesson, if it's going to be on introducing yourself, I have to start with the vocabulary. And then I will put the vocabulary in context. And then the cultural context. And then I will also present it now. I will zero in on the grammar. For example, when I teach past tense, I try to say, okay, I'm going to tell you what I did yesterday. That's all. And every verb I'm using, they can tell is past. And then maybe the next lesson will be, what am I going to do next week? Future. But I'm not going to tell them, today we're going to learn about future tense. I'm going to tell them, I want us to talk about what I'm going to do next week or next summer. When I'm teaching past, I tell them, I'm going to tell you what I did last summer, because I have to use past tense. That's how native speakers function. Native speakers don't go around and say, oh, keep, kept, see, saw. No. They use it in context. So our goal is to constantly be thinking of what is the context that we want to base our function. Your language teaching is all about function. It's about function, because we perform functions with our languages. So you always ask yourself, what function am I going to teach today? I just taught you one function, greeting. It's a function. Next time it could be introducing yourself. That's another function. Or asking for direction. That's a function. Narrating in the past. That's a function. Describe your friend. That's a function. What grammar do you need for that function? What vocabulary do you need in that function? Then I create a situation where people describe. My brother is lost. I went to the police station. The police wants me to describe my brother. That's the context where you describe, right? In real life. All the functions have to be put in real life situations. And that's what we
I'm a new student in Bloomington. I need apartment.
Yes,
Then
exactly.
you get a
Exactly. Finding an apartment, that's a function. You know, you call it an apartment person. There are so many things people teach. I mean, sometimes textbooks don't even do a good job about it. I've written like about 5 textbooks. Yet, I don't follow my textbooks. I just look for, okay, which function am I going to? I take maybe lesson 1 today, I could go to lesson 3. Because, textbooks, somebody sits down, using. So it's supposed to be a guide.
Yes, I was saying that I totally agree, 100%. Because some of those textbooks, you would even need some functions that are very, very far inside the book. So you don't want to go, skip, all those pages and get there. And even students may ask questions, why don't we start from the beginning? So then, that's the coherence of trying to see the different functions that are mostly used every day for the students and start from there by creating context and situations.
I educate my thank you so much. I educate my students about even the textbook. I tell them I wrote this textbook you're using, but I don't necessarily follow it page to page. No. We will just deal with, I don't teach the textbook. I teach the language. And I just use the textbook to guide me. And also to guide the students when they're doing the assignment. So you are in a good position. Then you can do, for Maya, the sky is the limit for you. Just like it was for me when I started teaching Yoruba 30 years ago. There was no textbook. So I just started. So you could really do a lot. But try to find out about backward curriculum design. This lesson plan is based on backward curriculum design.
I wanted to add something about using the target language for instructions. I think that it's important to do so, because instructions are like, for students, it's their way to survive. If they understand instructions, they are going to be able to do more than that. And so, if you write the instructions in the target language, you're going to force them to look for a way to understand. Even if it's for homework, they will go home and they will look for some way, somehow, to understand the instructions. Also, usually instructions become repetitive, right? So they start to memorize. If you go and ask students who took, I don't know, maybe French in high school, they probably remember how to say, listen, repeat, read, go over, right? So those are words that, because of the repetitiveness and because of the need to understand that position that you put them in, I'm going do this for homework and everything is written down in the target language. I mean, if they don't understand, so they'll look for someone to explain. They will be forced to use the language and to maybe indirectly find new strategies to learn it.
I think you're right. I agree 100% with you. Use the language for everything as much as possible. Unless they're completely lost and they're so confused. And then you have to maybe write something down for them in English. If they can figure it out, because figuring out, guessing is a learning strategy for language. Being able to guess what is going on. We do that a lot. Even as native speakers, when people are talking, we don't get everything. We're using we're using context, we're using gesture, facial expressions to be able to, guess what the person, is saying. So the rule of the thumb, is that the expression, is use the target language as much as possible. Shoot for 100%, unless, there is a complete breakdown. And then you can go back to the 10% window. But please, especially since they don't go out and hear Maya. They don't go out and hear Yoruba. They don't go out and hear Wolof. Don't deny them the opportunity to hear the language in the way it's being used. That's what this is advocating. Give these students the language. Any other questions? This is how to get me if you have more questions.
I have a comment, like,
What's yours?
Apple, this year is going to be Nashville, Tennessee, it's just 4 hours, so this is, like, a place closer, you know, so I would suggest to go to Apple, because there is also a special interest group for less taught languages, and
Yes.
that would interest you.
Yes. And there's also a less commonly taught language conference coming up in April, and it's in Chicago. It's also a driving distance, about 4 hours. It will also be good, for you guys to get to meet people who are also working on less commonly taught languages. And we are planning next year, inshallah, to bring Artful OPI big workshop here, where they will have up to 50 to 100, participants. So it's going to be on our campus, and that means those who are on our campus can have it for half the cost, because we will be the host. So we've already, talked to Artful, and CLE will be, coordinating that. So that's in the making. Artful is coming here for their big workshop. Yeah.
Do you know when?
Yeah.
Do you know when?
It's summer of
It's summer.
2018. It will be summer. Yeah. So
And
think of that.
The next workshop would be,
The next workshop for CLE will be next week.
Yeah, on
right,
the 10th.
Esther?
We'll send out the announcement by Friday.
It's on
It's on the
online.
10th, on online.
It's about online. It will be next Friday. Online
It's
teaching.
online.
Yes. That will be next Friday. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we'll have another workshop next Friday. What's the title?
Yeah, it's video use in an online language course.
and it's going to be,
It's going to be here, exactly in the same room. It's on a Friday at 2:30, February 10th. Yeah, we'll send out the announcement by Friday. We'll start, doing.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.